Hello and welcome to another episode of the 10 Plus Club, where I speak to business owners who have successfully run their business for more than 10 years. And today I'm talking to Darren and Peter at West Digital Production, and they have been going for 22 years in a very competitive market, post-production. Darren and Peter, hello and welcome to the 10 Plus
Hello.
Club.
Hi. Oh,
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
You both seem still quite young, and you've been running a business for 22 years successfully. How did you both start the business? Because you co-own the business. How did you come to start this
And
22 years ago?
I think it's probably quite important at this point to say as well, we're life partners as well. So that's or husbands. So it's a sort of that's another thing that makes things work in a different way, I'd say.
And could also present challenges as well.
Yeah.
But also advantages in terms of,
I think so.
yeah, I mean, I run my business with my brother, so there are benefits and downsides. I imagine they're the same for you both as well.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
And so how we started. So I actually I'm a colorist, and we started a company that I'd worked for 6 years, were looking to sell, and I bought out their post-production side of things, and that was back in 2022. Sorry, 2002. And we basically it was a very small outfit. It was just two online suites and an assistant, so myself, another editor, and an assistant, and then at that point, I was doing everything, and Darren was helping. Darren helped with the business plan because he's got an accountancy background.
So my background's in finance, so I kind of like came from I guess a more corporate viewpoint. So it was very helpful talking to banks and raising finance and writing business plans. That side of it. So.
I mean, it's interesting sorry to jump in there, but it's interesting from my perspective that you bought the business. I find that, I mean, that's interesting in itself. It's quite a bold move to have made as a young man, to buy a business. Most people don't even consider the option of buying a business, and they start, and it's only later when they become more sophisticated as entrepreneurs, they realize the route to buying, especially if you can raise the finance from the bank and you're buying something that's sort of got credibility with the bank, becomes advantageous. So what was it about this opportunity that opened your eyes to buying the initial business that you then grew?
I think because it was a management buyout, so Peter was working in the business, so knew everything about it. So buying it was quite a straightforward process. There weren't kind of any particular surprises. So in terms of writing a business plan and talking to the finance houses, we knew what we were doing. So that made it quite a smooth process.
And just to quickly jump in, for some of the viewers, what does before we get into the nitty gritty of how you've successfully built your business over 20 years, what does, to the layman, a post-production house, what do they do? What do you do as a business?
Shall I take that one?
I think that's yours. Yeah.
So we work with production companies who generally work with broadcasters or corporates. We do corporate and TV stuff, and films. And the production company will go and film something, and then when they finish filming, they've got what we call the rushes, which is everything that's been shot. They bring that back, and we look after all the technical aspects of the edit. So we provide edit suites. We make sure the material's all loaded. We manage any technical issues that arrive, and do all that. And that's what's called the offline. And that usually lasts for 6 to 8 weeks, typically for a documentary. And then the production house, it all gets signed off, and the finished edit then comes to us for picture finishing. Actually, I should say about offline. So the offline edit, in some ways, we're like a bit of a sophisticated hotel for that, because we have rooms that people hire. They bring in their own editors, because editors for that are often specialists. So if it's a documentary about, I don't know, trees, they'll be specialists in that, making environmental documentaries or whatever it might be. And
so you're really like a finishing house for a TV show. Effectively, once that TV show or documentary or film or any, and I imagine you do commercials as well. Once that's been finished, in terms of production, it goes to you to be finished for picture, to finesse it for broadcasting, and that's where you come in as a colorist, because that's kind of
so I do the finishing parts. Once the offline is finished, I do grading, which is making the pictures look pretty, is the best way of saying it. It's more complicated than that, but the top level is it looks pretty. And then we also have a dubbing suite with a dubbing mixer who makes the audio sound good, add spot sound effects. And I use color to tell the story, and he would use audio, sound effects. So little subtle things that the viewer may not, well, hopefully the viewer doesn't notice what I do and doesn't notice what he's doing, but it just helps I use color to tell the emotion of the story a lot of the time.
And I guess it's a part of that process that not many people outside the business would even know about necessarily.
Nobody knows what I do and they don't understand it. It's fine. I mean, I tell my friends what I do, and one of my friends calls it coloring in, which is
But when I look at your business, from the outside, I see a huge number of, relatively large number of staff. I've seen it's going 20 plus years. I see all the different TV shows that you've worked on, some of which, are like household, well-known names in terms of TV shows. So you must be doing something right in this industry. What is it that you think that you offer that has created this success in this sector?
I think I think all post houses have a level of technical expertise, and I don't think that you would say, I think I'm a good colorist. I mean, I couldn't do what I do and have the client base I have if I wasn't good at what I do. But all post houses have good colorists. They all have good dubbing engineers. I mean, but what gives us longevity is our relationships. We have deep, long relationships with clients. Once we've got a client, we generally keep them, and that, I think, is what makes it work. That we get on, we make sure that clients are always looked after, and the level of customer support that is in the TV industry is insane compared to everybody else. I mean, every other area of life I go to, whether it's builders, solicitors, I just can't believe how poor their customer support is. And the things that we do above and beyond, day in, day out, and we all do it, is insane compared to other industries. We're very good at looking after people. And
in terms of, you're both life partners, and you're both business owners, and you're both entrepreneurs. Is the split of responsibility in the business quite clear? Or do you ever overlap?
It's fairly clear. I mean, my background is finance and Peter's is technical and grading. So those areas are fine. It's like it's when they sort of cross over, it becomes a bit more complicated. And yeah.
Do you have is it just the two owners? Do you have any investors, or do you have any outside parties? Do you have to have like a board meeting, or is it run really just the two of you on a day-to-day basis?
We have a non-executive director who is a chap that we bought a company from in 2003. And he's very knowledgeable and really helps us keep grounded and settle any arguments or disagreements between the two of us. He's not a marriage counsellor.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to hear that. I didn't know that about you and your business, but I think that's where a lot of small businesses go wrong, is they don't have that sort of outside interface, someone that can sort of look at the business from the outside and prod it and probe it. Is that what your non-exec does? Is
Yes.
that the kind of role he plays?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we asked him to join the board. It's about 8 years ago, is it? Something like that. We were quite a mature business by then, but we weren't doing regular board meetings because it's the two of us, and we weren't really sitting down very regularly together. And there was a couple of things really. We kind of felt a responsibility, that the under the bus thing, that we both felt that if we were both in a plane crash, for example, the business would just fall apart, and that would be a shame. And we have a responsibility to our staff to make sure that there is some continuity if that happened, even if it was a smooth sale of the business, something like that. So there was that. And also, I think it's fair to say that Darren felt he needed somebody else to be interested in the financials as he wanted me to be. So again, it just forced us to look at the business side of things more. So, and it's been really helpful, I think. And we call them away days. So he lives out in the countryside, and we will go once every year or 2 years. We go to his, and we have a day where we just sit down and do all that blue sky thinking you need to do. And again, he's very experienced. He's run an editor's agency for many years. He's a little bit older than us, and just has a much broader perspective on the industry. So,
no, that's really interesting, and it's something that whenever I'm advising companies, it's the first thing I say is having that experience outside your company, just to look in and, push and probe and ask questions. And I suspect that means you are also sort of modeling for the future as well. I mean, is that the sort of thing that you would do, have future plans, or are you very much in the day-to-day running of the business?
Yeah, we do have future plans and do lots of budgeting and things like that, and try and forecast what the future is going to look like. But it's always so unpredictable. But even though it's unpredictable, it's still good to have some sort of plans. You have some idea of where you're heading to, but with the knowledge that it could change quite a lot.
And I'm aware you're based in a building in Shepherd's Bush in West London. Is that a building that you own or rent? It's like,
I wish. No, we rent.
So you rent, and okay.
Yeah.
And is that something, because a lot of post houses, whenever I talk to the odd owner, or they always see that as sometimes as a restriction, or sometimes it's a bit of a burden. Would that be something you always did, just always rented? And it wouldn't preclude you from moving even,
No,
if you were to grow.
Yeah, true. But I mean, we grew in 2014, and we kind of doubled the capacity of the space that we had, and that was quite a fun experience. And it's sort of like it's added a lot to what we've got as a facility.
Yeah.
I mean, moving's quite a complicated thing, because you have so much infrastructure in a building that you kind of build up. So you don't really want to remove it if you have to. So it just costs so much.
But so if you're advising someone who was looking to start in this sector, with your 20 plus years experience, what kind of advice would you give to someone who was looking to get into post-production or video production? If you have any advice, I mean, and because there's so many changes happening with AI, and also the software, and
I mean, the industry is always changing. I mean, the industry, when I entered 22 years ago, when I entered the industry in let's say around 96, 95, 96, it was a totally different world. I mean, grading, what I do, didn't exist really. There was a bit of telecine that was maybe the start of something, but picture grading wasn't a thing. And then it just changes all the time. So I'm quite technical. I'm always learning new things. In terms of what I would say to somebody, I think it's, if I was talking to somebody who wanted to enter this industry, like, just coming out of college, just at school, say, actually, let's not say coming out of college. First thing I'd say is think hard about going to college. You can get a job as a runner and work your way up. And people who come out of college will start as runners. There's no benefit. I went to, one of the country's top film schools, but I started as a runner. But the difference was, because I'd been to the film school, when I started working, I kind of knew stuff which set me apart from somebody who didn't, but it was still, getting industry was really tough, and it still is. There's lots of applications for every runner's job we put out there. And I think once so that would be my first advice, is to be prepared to put in the hard work at the start, and think on your feet, be creative about how you do things, because you need to stand out very quickly as somebody who's prepared to work hard and put in the effort, I'd say.
And did you find that your first few years starting this business were the toughest in terms of getting off the ground and making a mark?
No, because we already existed as a business effectively, because we'd bought out my previous employer. So I think the toughest times are the times like this year, which has been a very bad year for the business, for the industry, sorry. And 2008, the crash of 2008-9, those kind of global events. And strangely, the pandemic wasn't quite as bad because of all the government funding that was there to help out. But I think, those are the tough times. Once you've got a business that's running, you keep going. You find a way through it as well. And also, I'd say the advantage we've got in terms of our longevity is we can turn on a sixpence. So if something new happens and we think, well, actually, that would be a good thing for us to do, the two of us go, yeah, let's do it, and it's done. There's no, and we will put in the hard work. So Darren will build a room if it needs to be built. He does the DIY stuff. It's that sort of thing. So yeah.
How many people do you currently employ?
About 15, I think.
And is that the most is it a kind of business that expands and shrinks based on the projects? Is it like an agency model in that respect?
No, a bit, but it's kind of like a hybrid. So we tend to employ people rather than have freelancers, but there are projects when you need freelancers too. So you sort of have a combination of the two, really.
Yeah.
But generally, we've always. I had a client years ago, and also when you're young and starting a business, people give you advice unasked for, and it's great. It's really helpful. I had a client who said, "Oh, it's better to grow your own wood," and you know what? He was absolutely right. And so one of the things that we've always done is take people in a technical role. So they start as a runner, then they work in the machine room, and then they become an online editor, and then they become a colorist. And that's happened to 3 members of staff over the 22 years that have become successful colorists and are now working elsewhere. And that's how we build up that side of things. And we had somebody who did the same thing with the audio route. And it's always a sort of and bookings. So people come in as runners and then they work their way into bookings. So depending what people want to do, and often when we're employing a new runner, we will be thinking, oh, we're probably going to need somebody in the machine room within 6 months. So let's get somebody this time that's more technical, or we might need help with bookings soon. So let's get somebody in and just try them out. And the other thing that we changed a few years ago was with runners that they're on a 6-month contract, because if they haven't moved on within 6 months, they probably are better moving on somewhere else, because we haven't always got the space to move people on within the company. So,
Darren and Peter, thank you so much for that sort of whirlwind tour of post-production.
All right.
I mean, I know a little bit about that world, but I learned even more today. And I wish you, well, firstly, congratulations on the longevity.
Thank you.
It's not an easy thing to do in this world, to have a business that runs that long. And I think you're right. It is about relationships. It is about relationship building, and you clearly do it very well, as well as provide an excellent service. So thank you for the insights, and I wish you very good luck for the next 22 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye.